welcome to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and thanks so much for being here today. So glad you could join me. Well, I have another terrific show for you today. I hope you enjoy it. We're going to highlight a show that's taped here at the Valley Shore Community Television Station. It's called Looking Back, and the executive producer and host, Ann Pleva, which I'm thrilled to greet her, is my guest today. And Ann, thanks so much for being here. So nice to have you.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. I haven't been here in a while.
Well, it's nice to have you back. Why don't we talk about you first and introduce the viewer to you? Tell us about your background.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Bloomfield, Connecticut, and went to all the Bloomfield schools. I have 2 grown children and a husband of many, many years. And I was a late, I can't say I was a late bloomer, but maybe. I was late going to college. So when I graduated from high school, I worked for a bunch of years, got married, and had a family. And then at about age 35, I went to Ascenta Community College. And it took me 4 years to get a 2-year degree. But I didn't want to rush, you know. But there I was, I have what's called a liberal studies with mass communication option. So I took a lot of video production classes, and I was really drawn in. And when I did graduate, Win TV in my town in Windsor was coming on the scene, and they were incorporated in 1982. And by the time I got a little involved, I got on the board for a couple of years, and I just thought it was a really wonderful, exciting medium. And I was on the board for 2 years, and then a job open came up. It was the first, I was their first paid employee. They said, select your own name, so I chose executive director. I stayed there for about 6 years, and I really had a great time there, a great job. So I did everything from interviewing people and TV production, workshops, training. There was so much going on because it was so new. And at that time, the franchise was all the greater Hartford towns. I think there were 8 of us, Hartford, West Hartford, East Hartford, and so on, Simsbury. And but we were very unique. We each had our own studio. So we wound up with a studio in our community center. And so that's why I'm a little more comfortable, I guess, in getting re-involved.
Well, we have been told that we have some of your pictures that we would like to show. Why don't you take a look and tell us what we're seeing?
Okay. Well, I brought this to Chris one day because I thought it's pretty amazing. That whole thing is pretty amazing to me, not because my hair is darker, nothing to do with it, but the equipment is so much bigger. And of course, I coordinated a whole ton of volunteers. I think we had 60 or 70 volunteers, so I had to know how to work every piece of equipment in the studio so that I could oversee what they were doing. And I would have no idea how to work anything right this moment, except for my microphone, maybe. So I think we have another shot, too, of, oh yeah, I had like a 1-minute date with this guy here, Ted Turner. It was some kind of a video meeting, video production meeting, and it was in Simsbury, and I just sort of dragged him over for a photo shot. So that was my whole relationship with him, sadly, because he's a good-looking guy. So yeah, those are my pictures, and
we have 2 more that we'd like to show you.
Well, that's okay. So now I have to tell you, this is Art Carney. Not Art Carney, he's talking about Art Carney, Devin Carney, his grandson. And he did a wonderful show. He did a wonderful show. I have wonderful memories, and my crew is here. So this was just one of the many shows, although I haven't hit your record yet. And this gal, Lynn Davis, wrote a memoir, so we were talking about books that day, and it was a pleasure to have her on. So I got involved in this studio because I was really active with the Historical Society when I first came to town. And this gal said, you know what you should do? You should do oral histories. And I thought, it's an interesting idea, but I'm not going to do an oral history because it's too long, it's too much work, too many spots to mess up or misspell things or get the story wrong. And then about a year later, I went to somewhere where the high school Valley was taping something. And I realized, maybe I could find out how to do this. This might be a good way to do an oral history. So about another year later, I came to the studio, which was in this building, and I met Chris Morgan, the very competent access coordinator here, and he thought it was a good idea. So I had to scoot around, look for some talent. The person who actually told me that I should do oral history was Terry Garrity, and she had her aunt in mind. Her aunt, his name is Florence Stutka. She's one of the first shows I did. She's now 92, and we've become wonderful friends. I just love Florence. She makes me laugh all the time. She's one of my favorites. But I did a whole other bunch of wonderful people. So that's my story of my involvement here.
How long have you been on the air?
Well, I started in 2015, on the air here, yeah.
And what does the future look like for your show? I mean, do you have things coming up for 2022?
Well, I don't do a lot of shows, but I always have a few in mind. So I have some in mind, going around in my mind right now, and I hope to do more in 2022 because, I don't know, I was kind of goofing off in 2021. We'll blame it on Corona, like everybody blames everything on Corona. So, but yes, I hope to do a lot more. It's a wonderful studio to work in. I get a lot of support. Chris is number one. He's just an amazing guy. And, and I must tell you too that I can't even believe this, and I didn't think much of it the first time somebody stopped me on the street and said, "Hey, don't you do shows on Access Television?" But I hear it all the time. I was just at the doctor's office about a month ago, and this woman grabbed my arm and said, "Aren't you on Access Television? Oh, I love all your shows." So it's really fun. It's really fun to hear that, and it's just out of the blue. I said, "How did you even recognize me?" She said, "The voice." So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is the voice.
Looking back, where did the title come from?
Well, actually, the first person I did a show before Florence, because then Florence was sick, so I had to wait, was Ginny Cook. Her son Bill still does camera work for me. And I said, I got a couple of titles, so we were talking about how the first show was going to go. One is Senior's Voice or something like that. And one would be looking back, she goes, "Oh, I don't like that senior stuff." So I said, okay, perfect. Looking back really does describe it, because we look back at how everything used to be and, you know, what's going on now. So it's good.
How does the subject matter make you feel? Are you glad that you're doing a show like this?
Yeah, I really am glad, because I don't know, I've always been fascinated with local history. And one of the guys, another talent that I had on, his name was Richard McCook, I think is his last name. And he was a hairdresser for many years in downtown Essex. And I'd go for a haircut. I think everyone went for a haircut to him. And he would always say, because he grew up, he and his mom lived right downtown, and he would say, "You know, right over there was a bowling alley, and Mrs. So-and-so ran it, or, you know, the ice cream store." And I just found that fascinating. And one wonderful thing about Essex right this moment is so much of that is still there. So hopefully all those wonderful old buildings remain a long time.
What about my viewers that are interested in listening to you right now? Any thoughts as to advice as to how they can get started doing their own show that's like yours?
Oh, well, I think I have had offered that during many of my new shows. I have everything written up of how I do it. And as a matter of fact, I haven't varied much from how I do it. I find the person, I meet with them, we do questions. They see the questions, because I figured we're both a little older, usually the people that I'm interviewing. And then I go out and take pictures. So we have lots of pictures, which makes it the show much more interesting. So I would be happy. Contessa@gmail.com, that's me, and you can send me a note if you'd like to. I could work with you or give you a file of how to do it. And although I recognize that a lot of people like to be behind the scenes too, so so that's how I would do it.
We are starting to run out of time. Any closing thoughts for the viewers?
Let's see. I guess we talked about public access, and that's good that you brought it up.
Yep.
And I just want to quote Mr. Lewis, Chuck Lewis, who was just in here, who said that access may well be the last local voice in the community. So we got to get involved and save our access stations, because we're running out of print media and all that wonderful places that we used to get news. I don't know, it's scarce. Local news is scarce. So here we are with local stuff.
Well, I want to thank you very much for being here. We have run out of time, so thank you very much for sharing your story and talking about your show, which is very important to the station.
Well, thank you so much for being so kind. And I do want to say one more thing. Do I have another minute?
You have a second.
Your mom was the one who got us interested in doing this. We were all together, and she said, you know what, you do these interview shows, you should interview each other. So here we are.
Here we are.
So hi, Mom.
Well, thanks again for being here. It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You have been tuned into Arts and Entertainment. I'm so glad you could be here today. Hope you enjoyed the show. I'll see you next time.